Hello and welcome to Megawatt, the Tech Week in View. I'm Katie Scott and we're going to give you a rundown of this week's hottest news stories and what we thought of them. This week's seen controversy for Facebook and government proposals on online safety for children, so stay tuned. The Byron report on the effects of digital media on kids has now been published, and one of the biggest impacts is an overhaul of the video games rating system. So the government is one step closer to bringing in a rating system for games, especially online games in the UK, and suggestions are that it will be similar to the films rating system, but in the background, a bitter feud is rumbling on who should actually police the system, with the British Board of Film Classification on one side and the games industry on the other. The games industry is arguing that their own system, PEGI, which is an independent system and also a voluntary scheme, is the best one to go with, whereas the BBFC argues that their system is actually legally backed. So while the government can make all the recommendations it wants, if it doesn't have the BBFC and the game industry on board, what's the point? The Department for Culture, Media and Sport has singled out YouTube for criticism of its self-policing policy in its investigation of content online and its suitability for children. They say that the self-policing policy doesn't work, and ministers pointed to videos of crime, including horrific footage of a gang rape. The government has also made a recommendation that an independent body be set up to police content online, and it was in this investigation, in this hearing, that YouTube was singled out for criticism. But I want to tie this in with a story that we did not so long ago about parents knowing what their children are actually looking at online, because after all, parents are the ultimate policers of children's actions online. And in the story we published, we found out that 49% of children are not telling their parents what they're doing online, and 10% of those are having sexually explicit conversations, sometimes with strangers, without telling their parents, obviously. So here's the issue. The government can set up a watchdog which will serve to help the problem, but ultimately it is, again, down to parents to stop their children looking at harmful content online. This is the second infamous Facebook application though this week, the second time Facebook has hit the headlines. The first time was over the super poke application Shank, which basically allows Facebookers to knife each other. This has obviously drawn outrage from anti-knife crime groups in the UK, and the application has now been taken down. So YouTube wasn't the only website to have faced some controversy this week. In fact, Facebook has had its fair share. Over in the UK, it was over one of the super poke applications, which has now been removed. This application basically let Facebookers stab each other. But what was interesting was that Pocket-lint readers have immediately jumped to the defence of Facebook. To quote just a couple of the comments that we've had, Jay from Cheshire said, "Why blame Facebook for this when it's a separate application developer who created this? As if it isn't difficult enough having to constantly moderate and remove rubbish from their site, which they have achieved immensely well. It's hardly irresponsible of Facebook if it was not created nor added by them, nor is it for the protesters to have it removed from the site." Bill and Ben from the UK say, "Maybe virtual shanking should be left alone, as it actually doesn't do any physical harm. To make them take down this application is madness, while your kids can still play any game and pick up a virtual knife or gun. It's censorship gone mad." If you have any opinions to add to this, make sure you email us at news@megawatt.tv. Sticking with cheap and cheerful, a Taiwanese company is claiming it's produced the world's cheapest laptop. So a Taiwanese company has managed to produce a laptop for 65 quid. Think of the excitement there was when the one laptop per child programme said they could produce a laptop for $100. It actually ended up being $188, but that's by the by. Okay, the specs aren't all that impressive, and when it actually appears, it might be as flimsy as a piece of paper and as plastic as a Barbie doll. But does that matter? Someone has produced a laptop for just 65 quid. That was the Tech Week in View, our rundown of this week's hottest news stories and what we thought of them. Make sure you join us again on Monday for the usual daily news and views from the world of gadgets and technology. And in the meantime, have a lovely weekend. Thank you for watching.